we see these summits, these US Africa summit, and 40 odd African leaders have gone over to the United States of America, and China African summit, and we mobilize 40 odd African leaders gone over to China. And then there's a Russia African summit, and 40 odd leaders jump up and gone over to Russia. And if it's India, 40 odd of us gone over to India. And now it's Korea. So this is just the latest. I yearn for the day, because we are always going to them, and they always have an agenda. Exactly. It's never our agenda. Right. It's always their agenda. Yes. And we are going to them. Yeah. And in that, there is a power dynamic at play when we have to mobilize to go to them. And then when they set the agenda and we are responding to the agenda, we are complying with a potential master-servant relationship. And our so-called leaders don't seem to realize this. They don't seem to understand the optics of it. And I yearn for the day when Africa calls an Africa World Summit, and invite China and America and Russia and India and Japan and the EU. Invite all of them in Addis Ababa. Sit them down and then make the ultimate announcement. From this day forward, Africa is one nation. One nation. Whether we want to call ourselves the United States of Africa, it could be the United Nations of Africa, the United Kingdoms of Africa, the United Empires of Africa, whatever we want to call ourselves, the African Union, the Grand African Union, whatever we want to call ourselves. But we're going to now make this announcement to the world that from this day forward, Africa is one national entity. We speak with one voice. Our currency is one. We have one currency, one African currency. We have one African economy. We have one African embassy in your various countries, not an Ethiopian embassy and a Nigerian embassy, but one African embassy, one African vision, one African political program. Call the currency, if you will, call it the Mosiah, call it the Osajifo, alluding to Marcus Mosiah Garvey or the Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah. Call it what we will, but we have one currency. And this is our manifesto to the world. I yearn for that day. From this day forward, African resources will primarily serve the interests of Africa and its people. And if there's any left, then our market is open. But we are changing the power dynamics. For the last how many hundreds of years, you have been dictating the terms. Now we are going to set the price to suit our interest. Now, what say you? And we're going to announce one African army as well. One African army. I yearn for that day, my dear sister. And that is my answer to your question. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. And what a day that will be. What a nation day Africa will be. And
what a glorious day.
Oh my gosh, that just sounded absolutely phenomenal. I could visualize that, you know, because then Africa's resources will be used to build Africa and to build her people, to build the various sectors, the various industries, to establish the new institutions and societies and organizations. You know, our people will rise again to be the proud that they once were. What a
Oh,
day that will be. Then we can go in, with the other heavyweights, and stand
absolutely.
shoulder to shoulder and with our
Absolutely.
agenda. Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we give them a timetable. We're willing to meet with you individually. This is a world conference, remember? So we give them a timetable. All right. So Britain, this is when you can have audience with us. After Britain, China, this is when you can have audience with us. In fact, don't meet with Britain. Britain, they're too small. The EU, set the agenda. Tell them when they can come and see us and talk business. Tell China when they can come and see us and talk business. And when you come, we will be setting the agenda. We will put the agenda on the table. We're discussing our agenda. Yeah? There's a saying, there in Africa lies a sleeping giant. When that giant awakes, the world will tremble. You will see these so-called powerful superpower nations. You will see them shaking and trembling. You'll see them whispering among themselves. The sleeping lion is awakening. The sleeping lion. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do now? The sleeping lion is awake, and we are trembling. What do we do? Yeah, that's the power that we are sitting on as African people, as an African nation. That's the power we're sitting on. But we can't seem to see it.
And everyone else sees it. All the other nations sees it except us. Wow. Yes. But, the good news is that in some small quarters in Africa, they realize and recognize their greatness, and they are starting to say, on our terms. Our terms. And so we want to rise up, Burkina Faso, we want to rise up Mali, we want to rise up, who's the other one? Senegal, we want to rise up Guinea, we want to rise up those who have decided, you know what, enough is enough. We're fed up of colonialism, neo-colonialism, and having to jump at the tune of our former colonial masters, and remain in an impoverished state while they enjoy all of the riches and the benefits from our wealth. We want some of that for our people. So we want to rise up those Niger as well. We want to rise up.
Indeed. And I want to fundamentally rise up the people of these African nations, because it is the people who have been pushing for decades. It is the people who have been mobilizing and galvanizing for decades. Yeah. So I want to first and foremost rise up the people of Burkina Faso, the people of Niger, the people of Senegal. And we pray that we will stick to our task, stick to our guns, and never waver. Because what we are demanding, what we are commanding is right and just. And it is well overdue.